Okay, so we are back and we are joined by our colleagues from the Finance Committee because it is that time of year again. Here we go. Let's kick it off. So thanks for being here. I do want to mention there is a new member of the Finance Committee, David Keir, but he's just not able to be here tonight, correct? And there's still another opening on the Finance Committee.
Still another opening.
Okay. But
Sean is the chairman.
Sean is the chair.
Just
Congratulations.
Drew the short stick or?
You know, I volunteered.
Excellent.
Yeah, Daryl and I are gonna
yeah,
take turns until
trade-off.
somebody else
is ready.
is ready or
Yep.
willing or able.
Not
or
mentioning
whatever.
any names or anything, John,
Yeah,
but.
Johnson.
It doesn't have to be.
Ready is a good word.
Yeah. There's no pressure on him. It could
No.
be somebody else.
Yep.
Does the finance committee need to call the order for?
Sure, you can do whatever you want to do.
Yep, we'll call the meeting order.
And you all have had a chance, I'm sure, to meet Andrew.
Yes.
So this is our first joint meeting in this process. Our boards and our department heads and all our boards and everybody who has control of a budget has gotten some direction from us, and budgets have been requested, and they're in. Budgets are in. So tonight we're just basically doing a budget overview, and it looks like we are going to go over some of our sort of smaller, more predictable budgets. Okay. Is this, Karen, this is the new, or this is, yes.
So in the packet this evening for the select board,
Mhm.
you should have in order that I plan to talk
Yep,
about them, the
okay.
different budget pieces. And these are all ones that the town administrator submitted. So I
Mhm.
just thought I knew I'd be ready to
Yep,
talk tonight.
okay.
So I thought I'd take this first meeting.
Okay,
And we can start with a budget overview if that's helpful.
that's what I was going to
So-
say. Let's
Perfect.
start at the beginning.
Perfect. So on the budget overview, I don't have too much to say tonight because this document was still coming together until about today. But you should have all of the department budgets in your binders now. Because of the way that we do our budget, you'll notice that some departments look different from others. But for the most part, the guidance was given to everyone to submit a level funded budget and a level services budget. So that's what everyone should submit. On some occasions, there might be a third budget that's in there. Some departments really want to show you a level services that meets their operational needs budget, or a level services that actually brings us, or it was close to level funded level services, but actually meets what they believe that the town needs for services at this time. It's specifically the fire chief has a budget in there that I think we'll need to take some time reviewing. So you have your budget binders. I'm also starting to work with the chair of the finance committee to look at our overall budget workbook and budget picture, just to try to get a jump on that, to have an idea of what revenue looks like and everything else, and get a sense of really how much in new spending we think we actually can add in the next year. Of course, those decisions will come to these boards, but I'm trying to get more of a holistic look at that from the start. So hopefully at our next meeting, I'll have some more information on that. The other thing I'm trying to do is put together an overall spreadsheet of all the asks that have come in, and put together what I think is kind of a budget that is easier to digest, looking at line by line, and I can use that to come up with, a model of, well, what could potential COLAs look like, what could potential ways of meeting the asks look like, from kind of a town administrator suggested budget. I don't want to say recommended, but I'll have that document as well to look at, and we'll continue to work with the chairs of these committees to share that. So that's what I'm doing on my side. And you have, of course, before you the budgets from everyone, just kind of the raw asks, which I think is helpful as well. So I wanted to hit just a couple of trends and themes just to keep in mind before we dive into everything. So one, just to get the bad news out of the way first, we obviously have costs that we can't control that are coming from some places. And the biggest one is health insurance. And we have been told to expect a 15% increase in health insurance
Holy
costs. That was my
jumping.
reaction as well. And it's terrible news. I know it's because healthcare costs rise everywhere. It's I've been told that plenty of communities had increases that large, but it's still tough to hear an increase like that. And I'll try to work with our health insurance provider to try to find out, are there things we could be doing in the future? The community where I worked in before this was doing a lot on the wellness side to try to see if there are ways to build in some employee wellness work that help bring these things down. But at a certain point, there's only so much you can do. And that's just the position we're in at the moment. So we're planning on that 15%. If it actually comes back as 15%, then that could be right away around $115,000 added to the budget. So I wanted to start with that.
And that's the good news, right?
As I said, getting the really bad news out of the way.
So, but I guess, I don't want to deep dive into this, but
We should talk about
I've in the past met with Marlene, and we brought someone in from GIC to take a look at that. And at that point, the numbers didn't, it wasn't beneficial for Hatfield to go over to the GIC.
Mhm.
But I'm just wondering if our costs are going up that much. No, you're shaking your head.
So just structurally speaking, and I haven't looked at any numbers, but the Hampshire County Health Insurance Trust has the ability to cherry pick who it takes. It can take on, it only takes on groups whose experience and potential experience actuarially is better than the existing group. So as long as it has the ability to do that, it's just hard to conceive of how the GIC does better, given that,
Okay.
given that the GIC has to take everybody who's left. Like they don't have those same options. Now, maybe they're unable to find anybody else at this point. They also have a huge trust that they draw upon to reduce potential increases from, or have always in the past
Mhm.
several years. And we should look at what they're doing in that regard, which the GIC, I don't think can do that. So there's several kind of baked in advantages to the insurance trust that the GIC doesn't have. The big difference just being that I guess the GIC probably does offer, they may offer fewer plans. So it might be a little cheaper that way. They historically haven't offered all the same plans. It's certainly, we can look at it, but it's just, there's a lot. The insurance trust has some big, huge advantages working in its favor that GIC doesn't have. I mean, we went through years with no increase in health insurance costs when other people were seeing 10%, 8% a year. So,
And as I remember, that was done because they have a trust and they were able to absorb those increases
that was
many times.
sometimes that was
Yeah.
done that way, and sometimes it happened because they brought in a large group, a city or town from another part of the state or some other group that their experience was so much better that it lowered the cost for everybody, like GIC doesn't. So if the Hampshire County Insurance, if you apply to be a member of the trust, right, and they reject you, like a city or a town, then your option is to go to GIC and they have to take you. So that's why I'm saying, like,
I got you. Okay,
we've
but
had
that's
this
fine. I
built-in
just, like I
advantage.
say, I don't want to go
Yeah.
too deep into it. It's always good to consider options,
Yeah.
but if,
Yeah, you might be able to get a break just based on the plans they offer, but that would also reduce the options for employees, and it would
they
depend.
offer less plans than the group insurance trust. I mean,
Well, they offer different plans. Yeah. And there may be like, but it would have a potential impact on the employees. You have to look at that and see what the impact is.
I mean, I guess I'm shocked. So GIC offers less plans?
Yeah, they'd have to offer more. Right?
They offer more. I mean, maybe
They
some of
don't
them aren't as good for Western Mass.
They don't offer, if I remember correctly, and you can look and we can talk about, the Hampshire Trust offers an indemnity type plan that GIC does not offer, and it's the most expensive one. So, but I don't know how many people take it, especially in Hatfield, because we only pay 55% of your health
Right.
insurance, and it's the most expensive one. So,
Right.
like, how many people take it is a different question.
I mean, there's a lot of options for GIC.
Did they?
Yeah.
Was there an increase last year? I'm trying to remember. Or
To the
was-
55%?
No,
Oh,
not to,
oh, oh.
no, to the
I thought it was
insurance.
like, I
That was
want to
years
say, I
ago,
thought it was
before
like
I-
7%.
Sounds about right.
Okay.
That's about
Yeah,
ish.
because I'm remembering the years where,
Yeah, it was like
They-
2%.
yeah, it was barely nothing, so.
Does seem to.
Sorry, I didn't want to sidetrack too much, but I'm sorry.
No, it's good to know. I mean, I think it's good for people to know how that works, that
Yeah.
it's a different system.
I mean, I certainly think it's worth looking into the increase and are there options to not having it go up that much, but probably there won't be many
Yeah.
options, but it's worth the question.
Mhm. So I'm sorry, Andrew, to get you off track.
I just need to know what the increase was from last year. So it looks like last year there was a 10% increase.
That's
Still large.
large.
Yeah.
Okay. So wanted to get that out of the way and just say that that's something that we're facing. And of course, we haven't gotten the final numbers yet, but we were told to anticipate 15%. So getting into items that we can control, of course, one that ends up taking up a lot of the conversation in any community where I've worked in is what the cost of living adjustment ends up being for non-represented and non-contractual staff. So I just ran some early numbers just trying to look at how many staff members would potentially be asking for a COLA, and seeing that about each full percentage point COLA increase for non-school, non-contract, non-represented employees would add about $17,000 in the budget. So if you had 0 COLA to 1%, you'd be adding about $17,000. And this is early numbers on my side, but it's just useful for modeling things, so we can continue to play with that. So 3% COLA, a little over $50,000 in spending.
Were we 3% last year?
It ended up at 2.6% last year. So each 0.1% would be around a $1,700 increase, 15 to 1,700. And overall, at $17,000, that's about 0.1% of our overall budget. So each time you're adding a 1% COLA, you're adding 0.1% to our overall budget.
Mhm.
So there you go. As it was previously reported from the financial update, our free cash number came in at a good number this year, which is great. So over 1 million, 1.108 million. And we'll have a number of capital requests that come in through capital committee, and typically free cash is a good source for a lot of those. Also a good year to look at our financial policies and try to think about meeting the contributions we're supposed to be making to our stabilization funds. It could be a good year to do that with the 1.1 million in free cash. It's also a good year to think about maybe reducing some of our debt obligations as well. We could think about getting a jump in some of those payments if we wanted to with some of the free cash that we have. It's just another option available to us. So putting that out there. And just another thing that I saw in a lot of our requests, and just trying to match it up with what we've spent in the during this year and 2 years ago, just because every department has their own budget, we end up with, which makes sense, individual lines for things like admin and office supplies, postage, professional development, business travel, all these things for each department, and maybe some of them get spent each year and a lot of them don't. This is not a lot of money we're talking about, but it might just be a good idea to think about maybe some of these and centralizing it, and just thinking about requests, maybe from the town administrator's office, maybe from somewhere else, and have a certain amount that we're spending each year, instead of maybe everyone getting their own $1,000, $2,000 pool that actually doesn't end up getting spent. Again, not a lot of money we're talking about, but when we get down to thinking about if a COLA, another 1% is $17,000 in the budget, maybe centralizing some of those spendings can get down to even half or all of that. So just something to think about as I look through what was spent in the last couple of years. Maybe changing a structure on that could be helpful. So I tried to start from highest impact, and now I'm at lowest impact, but just putting it out there. So that's all I wanted to start with budget overview. We will get down to a point where we have a better idea of what overall spending looks like, and I can present more about what the overall increase to the budget would look like, what cost centers it's associated with, everything like that. And I'll have more information on that when we get closer to a real budget. But just wanted to put that out there in the beginning.
Thank you. That's great. How about you? Do you want to throw anything out there? Have you had done any pre-meetings, any thoughts on the process in general, or an overview, or?
The only thing that we've really, when we had a meeting, talk about process and such, and, I think we're comfortable with whatever, the process that's laid out is fine. We can talk about this. I think that when it comes to putting the actual budget together, what we should do is work backwards from the amount of money that we have, rather than work forwards from all the requests, because in reality, like, we've just spent most of it already sitting here. You know what I mean? So like we can have an endless conversation about all that, but like and the reality is you've got very little money to spend.
Right.
So, and if you're going to do any kind of COLA, and it's going to be across the board, you've really spent most of it. Just between, and that's why in our first meeting, I was like, we were talking about, let's find out what the health insurance increase is, because until we know that, like that's.
It's really a driving force in how
it's going to be about 35% of your new money.
Yeah.
This is already off the table. And that doesn't include if, liability insurance increases.
utility increases that
Utility
we've seen
increases.
over the past few years.
I mean, that's.
Yeah.
Certainly not going down.
Well, no, and because insurance companies work on, even the health trust, like, for example, works on reinsurance at some level. The cost of half the state of California being on fire raises the cost of reinsurance, because the insurance companies can't lose money. So I would anticipate liability insurance is gonna go up, because, I mean, we haven't gotten rid of any. Like, if we had gotten rid of some major structures or done something, then maybe you could think it wouldn't, but it feels like it's going to go up, because why wouldn't it?
I will say we've been budgeting pretty conservatively in the past couple of years on our liability insurance. I'll actually talk about that. That's in the presentation tonight, or the budgets tonight. So much so that we were kind of budgeting 5% on the previous 5%. So we're kind of above where we needed to be for a budget at the moment. So that we shouldn't see get raised too much. However, it's only around $200,000 total. So that's not a ton of cost savings, but it is nice that it's flat instead of let's plan for higher.
Right.
And is anyone coming in with utility increases?
The utility increases, it looks like, from looking at our spending across the board, we're on track to actually ahead of where we need to be at the moment. Now, of course, that's probably what you'd want to see, because we're entering the time of the year when we're spending a lot more on some of those utilities. But I think folks properly looked at how to budget more in the last 2 years when costs were really going up. And I think we're hopefully ahead of that for this year. So we'll see.
Great.
So we all know those little things that come up, the fuel and all those that, like, I mean, I don't know if that's going to be dramatically higher than it has been in the past, but just.
And we're still joint purchasing all that, the electricity.
Well, we were under contract for fuel for a while, but I don't know if we still are. We'll have to find that out.
That would be the one through FERCog?
Yeah, we had prepaid, we have some amount of fuel that we purchase in advance.
Right. I'll check on that.
But isn't our electricity through used to be through the COG, and of course the COG's doesn't exist, but right? Weren't we buying
some kind of aggregation? I don't know who we're buying it through.
Whoever took them off, I thought that was still approved by our electricity.
I did not think so.
Yeah, I remember.
So we have the I'll get back to
Yeah.
everyone on that, 'cause that's not in this budget tonight, but we are on a plan that's saving us on municipal buildings.
The
through
clean energy.
clean
Yes.
energy.
Yes.
We have that. I know in previous towns I've worked in, we had a contract rate that we bought into for all municipal energy, so we could just predict what our costs were going to be. I don't know of a similar agreement that we have here, so I'll have to check on that.
Yeah, maybe maybe what I'm thinking about is the clean energy.
That might be the one. That does save us 15% in
Oh,
some
yeah.
of our highest users, which is great.
Okay, so do we want to start going through these town administrator budgets?
That works for me if everyone's
Is
okay with that.
Yep.
Perfect. So the order that I had here is the order that I planned to talk about. This is in the select board packet. So HCTV, this is relatively straightforward. I did talk with John Novak about these different centers. You'll see the biggest increase is for capital replacement. And fortunately, this is one of those accounts where we have an enterprise account that we're drawing from. We also have an agreement from our most recent license negotiation with Comcast that put a decent amount of money forward for capital improvements as well. So while you'll see increases here, they don't really hit the taxpayer at all through the enterprise account, and that enterprise account is very healthy right now in part because of those Comcast payments. So regular salary, this will be one of the COLA ones. So that'll go with the same COLA as every other employee. So we'll decide on that when we decide on it. The rest of the items here are flat. The spending, I think, justifies it from this year. And when I met with John trying to see if we could cut down any of them, he actually did have different items that he wanted to spend on for each of them. For capital equipment, the plan is to purchase 2 new computers, a video playback server, and some new cameras. So got the new studio upstairs and new room for meetings, and now we'll fill it with some equipment that we'll be able to really meet those areas with. So pretty straightforward. Happy to do any research or answer any questions that you have.
But the capital is through the enterprise fund.
And all of this is through the enterprise fund, and the capital is even bolstered
Right.
beyond the enterprise fund with these Comcast payments.
Okay.
Great. So the next 2 is animal inspector and animal control officer, and you'll see that both of these are flat as well. It's our current plan. The salaries for both those, I believe, would be subject to the same COLA. That's typically how it's been done. So I show it as flat, but if we go with the COLA, those should increase as well.
Is Scott still doing this, or is he? He is. I thought he was talking about.
I think he is
retiring.
talking about retiring, and so we should probably have a conversation with him about that, because it might be tough to find somebody with the qualifications that you need to be able to do this. And I think there's some regional services.
I will say I've begun conversations with someone who's doing this regionally about trying to see if we can expand a potential region and create a more robust regional service, kind of extending from here into the hill towns. But that seems like our best approach at the moment. There's some real interest in trying to put something together. So I'm going to look for some support in doing that. And we'll back to everyone with what a plan like that might look like. My hope was that we could get another year out of Scott, but we'll see if that's the case.
We should see, because
then-
Scott's great.
Regional
It
would
would
be
be
great.
good to have conversations with him, I would think. And,
Yeah.
if something's going to change, it's better to be planned for the change than to
Yep.
have it thrust upon you.
We've been
I
lucky
agree
to
with that.
have Scott.
It's time to
Oh, he's awesome.
be ready for a change.
Yeah.
I met Scott for the first time yesterday. He did not signal anything about wanting to leave, which was great to hear. It's great.
Okay.
So I don't think I need to go into any more details on
Right, there-
animal inspector and animal
Yep.
control at this time, but clearly the big question about what's the future of that department is important. Conservation has an ask this year that I think is a reasonable one. They would like to include hours for our assistant planner to also help with conservation. Our assistant planner, Bella, has been going to some of their meetings and could take a greater role in some of their enforcement work, which I think would actually be a very good thing for the town, very helpful. They have a funding source of sorts that comes in when they have notice of intent permits that come in. That should be going into a revolving account through the Conservation Commission. It has not always been in the past, but they are making sure that that's happening now. They also had some slight increases for professional development, which would help that assistant planner get some more training for that conservation-related work. I think that's a good investment. And they think that they would need to be spending a little less on some of those other professional services, the cost of a vendor or contractor, if we have more of the staff time. It's good to see. Slight increase in dues and membership as well to help the assistant planner take on some of those professional associations to increase their learning. That's conservation, small budget, some higher asks this year, but I think they would help professionalize that staff a little bit. Great. Next is auditor. We asked for a number from our current auditing services. They expect that it would basically be flat. It would be a $1,000 increase for their services for next year. We're happy with our auditor services, so I think this would be fine.
Cheap.
Yeah.
The audit, we are waiting for the audit results to be coming in. That should come by the end of January. So that's also helpful for our budgeting conversations. See if there's anything else that's recommended. Legal, I increased the legal budget slightly just because it feels like you could always have more legal bills coming in, but I'd say if that needed a slight cut, we'd probably be fine because our town administrator is very good to us with the rates that he charges, and he's also very mindful of our time. It's really been great to work with. I'm a big fan. And we, right now, we're at 24% of our annual legal bills being spent. We spent $24,000 2 years ago. Clearly the best way to save on legal is to not be in litigation. We have some of that this year, but not too much. So that's a good place to be. So next type, insurance premiums. This is the one that I mentioned earlier that we'd really been budgeting pretty conservatively in the past on insurance. And our actual spending was about $8,000 below our budget spending in 2024, and we budgeted 5% above that, and we're on track to come in well below that right now. Spent to date is $143,000, which should account for most of our premiums for property and liability insurance, but they may come back with an extra assessment for workers' comp and some other things. So we're in a good place there. If we budget 210, we should be in decent shape for next year. We were told that we should not have an increase in our Maya premiums for next year. We did lock in a rate for a 0% increase for next year and a 2.5% increase in 2 years over this year's rate.
And that's our professional liability.
Professional liability. Yeah, that's property, and they provide workers' comp as well. And then the fire and police is separate. It's through Chubb.
Okay.
Select board. This is basically flat. I adjusted business travel based on what had been spent in the past, but certainly if this board would like, I probably should have asked the board about that first. So if you'd like to see that level to this year, that's certainly an option. And I did increase the amount for professional development. So if more folks want to go to MMA or anything else, we have the option for that. I think it's a good opportunity if that's of interest. Basically flat for select board. Town administrator budget. So professional salaries comes directly from my contract. Administrative salaries is flat here, but this is another one where we would put in the COLA increase. So whatever COLA is approved, that's what everyone would receive. Part-time temp wages is something that we keep flat at $3,000. That's the board's been interested in keeping that flat in the past in case we need more help seasonally, and that's much appreciated to know that that's an option. That stipend I added, that's a contractual element, $1,500. Advertising I kept level. Professional development is slightly increased. Other professional services, we had spent $10,000 in the past on this, and we were over our current amount at 5,000. We're already at 5,400. I think it's useful to have a line for any consulting or anything else that might come up in case we just don't have the capacity to do it in-house. So I think 10,000 is pretty reasonable. Obviously, if we've got a tight budget, that's a place to cut. But I think 10,000 is reasonable for this office. The telecommunications is new. That's contractual. That's $900. Otherwise, postage is level, admin office supplies is level, and business travel and dues are level.
Is the telecommunication just for, is it for everybody or is it just
It's a
for you?
reimbursement for the town administrator for using their personal cell phone.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Any questions on TA budget? Technology. So this assumes that we move forward again with our current vendor, Suzer IT. I had never worked with them before, but so far they've been providing good service from what I can tell. They are able to keep our budget level for next year for our overall contract. It's $40,000. We had a good meeting with them recently, Karen and myself, where we talked about some options for maybe even limiting or bringing back some of the help desk time that we have on site on once a week. We're just not sure if the number of tickets that we're actually filing and having completed meets the amount of hours that we're getting. So there's even room to adjust that a little bit, and they're perfectly willing to have a contract that meets, what our needs are. That was a good conversation. Other professional services, I am requesting about $5,000 to do a bit of a refresh on our website. Civic Plus will work with you to just kind of do it across the board, look at maybe a little bit of redesign, looking at ways to make it a little more resident friendly and finding things, and then kind of audit it, make sure we remove any materials and information that's just not needed anymore. It's a nice to have if we're in a lean year and need to wait on that, or just have us do a first round of trying to do that without Civic Plus support. That's an option. But I think it's a nice investment in showing that you're trying to improve your the first thing that most people look at when they look at what's going on.
That's the kind of thing we might look at free cash as well. If it's a
One-time expenditure.
one, it's not annual. We're going to do it.
Right.
It's a great point.
Might be something you do every 3 or 4 years or whatever.
Yeah. At some point too, we're on the lowest service level of the Civic Plus websites. So it's the oldest version of it. I actually kind of like it compared to some of the other ones that they've put out recently. But at some point, they will probably require us to upgrade. And if we wait long enough, that upgrade may be free. But they also will be trying to encourage us to make that upgrade sooner. I wouldn't recommend doing it. I think that the system we have works fine. So we'll keep an eye out for that as well. If we wait longer, perhaps we get even more out of a redesign. If you do a redesign at the same time, you have to upgrade. Nice. Software licensing, this is a slight increase. This was somewhat Suzer recommended, somewhat me recommended, and just trying to make sure that we have the licenses that we need for some departments that seem to be looking at having some extra capabilities from their tech. We may not use it all, but I think it could be wise to upgrade this a little bit. I'm seeing that we went over the budget in 2024. This year we seem on track, but it could be useful to have an upgrade there. Again, that could be cut if needed. And then capital equipment replacement, that line came from Suzer. They think around $8,000 would get us the replacements of workstations that we need for this year. Probably do around 5 a year. So that's what this would pay for. That's just decent capital management on the IT side. Town hall operations, this is kept pretty flat. We're in good shape in our budget for these lines for taking care of town hall. The biggest one here is the copier leases. That's what the $10,700 is for. There'll be another cost center in town hall operations that's about town hall facilities, so taking care of the building itself. This is really more about anything that you see in the copier room down the hall. So there you go. And water. Okay. And the last one I have here is Veteran Services. So at the last meeting, 2 meetings ago, last meeting, the board did vote to renew our agreement with Northampton. I've put in a line for what I think that agreement will cost us this year, but we will wait to see what it goes up to. We'll have that number before the end of the budget process. So clearly, it's more than we used to spend in a stipend to a Veteran Services officer here, but there are increased requirements from the state now about the kind of certification that you need in order to do that position.
Mm.
So at the moment, it feels like contracting with Northampton is the best move, but we can continue to look for in-house if we want to. So those are the budgets that I wanted to present tonight. Gets a decent number out of the way, and our next meeting we'll plan to do police, fire, and COA.
Pretty straightforward. Thank you, Andrew. Good
Bet.
presentation.
But can I, one, on the techno?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember, my
Mhm.
brain's a little slow, but are we backing up everything on the cloud now, or do we actually still have, we're all done with having servers?
We are done with on-prem. Yeah, we're
It's all
offering cloud services, at least, yeah, from the
Okay.
town side. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was an upgrade that happened, I think, a year ago.
2 years?
Years ago.
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
If all nights go that smoothly, that'd be great. This is a good plan. And I mean, this would have us done a little sooner than we normally are.
Oh,
Like the overall plan.
Is there anything else that you want me to try to prep departments for as when they present to you? Is there, I mean, certainly they've done this more than I have, but is there anything that would be helpful compared to past years that you'd like to have in their presentations?
I think they're usually pretty good about, if there's increases, explaining why. And what's not on here is capital projects. Would that be just part of the general?
I made a note, I think it's the March 25th meeting, or I made a note of when, maybe it's March 11th, that when capital planning should be done with their deliberations and they
we're
could
gonna be
present.
doing capital planning next week.
Really?
That's
What night is that?
21st?
Of capital.
I do have that.
They have a scheduled
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
So that's with the finance committee.
Treasurer too, or no?
So I'll make sure to
I-
schedule a time for,
I
Capital
can't.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are you gonna be here on the 28th?
I don't have anything else.
I think so.
You guys have anything
guys-
else
Do
tonight?
you guys want to go somewhere to schedule a couple meetings?
Yeah, we should
Before we
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we gotta-
Yeah, I will not be here on the 28th.
Is your office open? Can we adjourn this?
Oh, that's
On
cool.
the 28th, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, we're going to continue in the other room.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
of course, thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
A motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Over and out.